I am very, very sensitive about racism, and I spoke out against this bill because I fundamentally believed that it was a neo-colonial attempt to control conservation management programmes of African democratic countries. Representatives from Angola, Botswana, Namibia and Zambia who are involved with the conservation activities in what's called CASA, the Kavango-Zambezi Trans-Frontier Conservation Africa, commented, what right do they have to impose restrictions that will damage our wildlife and people?
It's not just conservation madness in the name of animal rights, it's racist too. In Westminster, Sir Bill Wiggin is leading the opposition to a private member's bill by MP Henry Smith to ban the import of hunting trophies. He's one of a few voices of dissent as MPs ignore pleas from scientists and pleas from African nations.
Current system is that the squeaky hinge gets the oil. The people who shout the loudest, the antis, are being listened to, and that strikes me as a particularly bad way of legislating.
MPs from across the political divide spoke in favour of the bill, including the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn.
Perhaps he could join the rest of us in congratulating all those many campaigners all around the country that have worked so hard to draw attention to the issue of trophy hunting and ensure that we've got such a good attendance here today, and that in itself becomes an education to people to understand that we can play our part in conservation of beautiful and endangered species by passing this bill today.
And we are sending a very strong message to the rest of the world that in this country, where we can, we are demonstrating our support for endangered species as set out by CITES.
These wonderful, magnificent animals, some of which are on the brink of extinction, are worth so much more than a mere trophy on the mantelpiece. Trophy hunting is a relic of the past. It has no place in modern Britain.
At second reading, I argued that trophy hunting is an ugly relic of the colonial era. What I would add to that today is that trophy hunting and poaching is in fact illegal for locals.
For the record, locals going hunting is not illegal in African countries that rely on hunting to pay for conservation. To their credit, and following Fieldsports' news campaign pointing out the lies they told about wildlife during the second reading of the bill, MPs told far fewer lies at the third reading. Sir Christopher Chope and Sir Bill Wiggin tabled 30 amendments to the bill. The government accepted 2 of them. An advisory board on hunting trophies will be established. The Secretary of State will not be able to add new species to the ban list, and the law will be reviewed after 5 years, and if found wanting, scrapped.
Sir Christopher Chope.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for saying that he supports new clause 4. The background to this has been explained, that there are diametrically opposed expert opinions on what would be a good hunting ban of trophies and what would not be. And I think it's important that this debate should be informed by the facts and the science.
I have been concerned throughout the progress of this bill, however, that it is not motivated by a desire to see African wildlife flourish and prosper. If it were, then it would have paid heed to the scientific evidence provided by experts in conservation. British conservationists Professor Amy Dickman and Adam Hart have argued that 90% of protected areas with lions are severely underfunded. Removing trophy hunting without providing a suitable alternative of revenue will expose those underfunded protected areas to further risks such as poaching. According to the IUCN Red List, trophy hunting is not considered to be a threat driving any species to extinction. Instead, trophy hunting generates revenue for anti-poaching and habitat conservation.
Environmentalists, community leaders and ordinary Africans agree the new law could be a disaster for conservation because landowners will replace wildlife with cattle.
Trophy imports shouldn't be banned because if you're banning trophy hunting, it's like you're cutting off the chain of the money that is generated from trophy hunting that goes into local conservation efforts and local communities. And that would be putting a dent on a lifetime of efforts of people who have tried to save endangered species through the funds generated from the conservation and trophy hunting.
The government wanted to set an example, and I think there's a real danger that the example it will set is that white British people know better about conservation than African governments, democratically elected, who, to be fair, are doing a better job than British people did when they were in the colonial age running those countries. So Africans are doing a brilliant job on conservation. I don't think it should be for us to tell them how they should do it.
The bill covers nearly 6,000 species, including scimitar oryx and bontebok, which only exists thanks to hunting. It will now face further scrutiny in the House of Lords before it can become law.
I think in the House of Lords there are more peers who are likely to speak out. I was very sad that in the House of Commons there was very little resistance to this bill. I was the only person who spoke out against it at second reading, and I was very pleased to be joined by one or two colleagues later on, and we were able to get amendments to the bill because there is some sympathy in government for the conservation efforts that the UK is making. But one of the arguments we have is that African countries want to be able to use trophy hunting to increase the incomes of villages and people committed to living with large and dangerous animals. And I don't think that's something that British people understand, because of course we don't have lions wandering around near schools. And if we did, I think we'd feel very differently about it.
The bill only bans the import of body parts of animals kept as trophies into mainland Britain, not Northern Ireland. So there is doubt how much of an effect it will have on trophies coming into the UK. The fear is that it will empower other legislators to pass similar bans, such as Finland and Belgium, and then habitats will start to suffer. That may open the floodgates to poachers in countries that rely on hunting revenues.
The concern held by both conservationists and African community leaders is that in forcing the removal of the vital source of revenue supplied by trophy hunters to these communities, we open the floodgates to poachers who will cause far more cruelty and pain to the animals and will pose a far greater threat to endangered species. The opinions and evidence from these experts do not fill me with a lot of confidence that the bill will achieve its stated aim, nor does the amount of misinformation that is being touted by the campaign to ban trophy hunting. So I've introduced this clause to ensure that this bill is not a classic case of virtue signalling at the expense of African wildlife and the conservation efforts of African people. In 5 years down the line, the Act proves to be ineffective, as I suspect it will, at conserving endangered species and has led to an increase in poaching, then it seems right to me that provision should be made for the Act to be withdrawn.